for joining me today on Sweet Tea Hospitality. I'm Karen Conrad, and on today's episode, you're going to learn how to transform the exterior of a dated 1960s brick house into a welcoming, dreamy coastal cottage for an amazing price. You don't want to miss this. Welcome to Sweet Tea Hospitality, where we bring inspiration to your home and your heart. My name is Karen Conrad, and I'm going to be taking you step by step through our latest renovation project that we've named the Coastal Cottage. Now we're going to be starting on the outside of the home. And if you're a homeowner, or maybe you're in the midst of a renovation project yourself, I want to encourage you that the money we spend on improving the curb appeal of our house is one of the main areas that all of the experts tell us will be a strong ROI, or return on investment. Plus, this is the point at which the idea of hospitality in our home starts. Just the moment that people pull up on the curb and walk into the front of the house, we are giving them an impression of our home and our property. Now, if you are an investor, or maybe you're trying to sell a home, that's really encouraging, because you know this is one of the places that you know you can focus on. But I want to encourage you too. With our homes that we live in, the outside of our property is really that place we start to give people an idea of what hospitality in our homes are all about. And we want to make sure that that experience coming into our homes starts out right. All right, let's head out to the project, and I'm excited to see the house today. Okay, so at the front of the house, you might notice here that we have got some bushes and shrubs, which initially we really thought were going to work out, but as we looked at it further, my amazing husband Dave suggested that we consider removing them. And after he said that and we started to look at it, we realized, yes, these need to come out, because the porch is a really beautiful feature of this home. But because these hedges are so high, they're actually blocking the porch. And I think that was one of the issues with the curb appeal of this house. The other thing that we're looking at is we need to lighten up this porch. This color blends with the brick, but it really makes the porch look really dark, and we want to fix that to make this front more inviting, so that when somebody looks at this house, right from the beginning, they're greeted with a beautiful porch, a beautiful front door, nice landscaping, and it feels inviting and makes them feel welcome into what I hope is their new home. Hey Levi, thanks for picking up.
You bet. What's going on?
Okay, so I got a call from Melchor, and he's at the property. And who's the guy that did the fence?
Jerry.
Jerry. Okay, he didn't finish it, Levi. Like he stopped short, and like I can still see all the junk on the end.
And I just kind of assumed that he would end it all the way by the neighbor's fence. I did pay his invoice, which could be a little problematic. And he sent me pictures, but I guess the very end was cropped out. Man, that doesn't sound good.
Well, something that Melchor said is that apparently, is there an easement back there?
There is a utility easement.
Okay.
It's a small town Texas utility easement. You know, if Jerry's arguing that he can't keep going, literally every other house on the block has their fence go all the way.
Okay.
So that's just not gonna hold up, I think, for him. That fence should go all the way.
I guess if the original agreement was just to go as far as he did, you know, yeah, of course, we want to work with him on that. But if the original agreement was to go all the way to the end, then we probably need to talk to him about that. Hey, Levi, can you give him a call? I mean, it is probably something like that he just wanted to make sure he's doing the right thing. And if that's the problem, just tell him that Melchor said that it's okay, like everybody does it, just like you said. Can you take care of that for me today?
Yeah, I'll call Jerry right now.
Okay, Levi, thank you so much. All right, I love you.
Love you too, Mom.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Welcome to my Sweet Tea Design Workshop right here in my home in Southlake, Texas. This is my creative space where I can really think through these projects, and the exterior of this home definitely gave me plenty to think about and a lot of problems to solve. You know, when you think about it, curb appeal is really important. It's certainly important when we sell a property, but it's really important for when we have people over or we come home. A lot of times we think about just the interior of the house, but what people see is the exterior. So I'm going to give you some tips in here that I think you can apply in your home to help freshen up that exterior. It's important to remember that hospitality starts on the outside of your home. One of the biggest challenges that I had with this property was the roof. It was a really bad color of brown. Matter of fact, I think I called it cat poop brown, which was very fitting. And part of the inspection process was to take a look at the roof. And we found out that it was quite damaged, so we negotiated with the seller and I got to choose the color for the new roof. So we went with charcoal. Do you know, we had a similar situation with our property right here in Southlake. We didn't realize, but there was hail damage on our shingles. And so one of our neighbors is a roof inspector, and he just said, hey, you might want to take a look at your roof. We didn't think there was a problem, but sure enough, when he looked at it and the insurance company looked at it, they replaced our entire roof. Now, we weren't looking for that, but I will tell you, it gave us an opportunity to have charcoal shingles on this house as well. So you might want to take a look at that and see if there's an opportunity for you to replace your roof. The house had old gutters, and they probably, looking back on it, should have been replaced. But there's just a point at which with renovations, whether it's our own home or something that we're doing to maybe do a resale or a rental, you have to kind of decide how far you're going to go. So we had all of the gutters painted in the sealskin color, which is part of the color scheme that we put together for this property. But the actual gutters were sagging. So we were thinking, oh my goodness, do we have to replace these gutters? Well, we came up with an idea with Miguel, one of the guys that was working with us on this project, and we went and purchased clips that we installed that kind of pulled the gutters up. And you know what? They look like new, and it saved us so much money. The dark porch really closed off the entryway and really back to that feeling of hospitality. When people walked up to the home, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, is this like a haunted house? It was just so dark and uninviting. And so we really assessed what needed to be done with that. And it didn't take much. It was a lot of it had to do with the roof was a dark color and the columns were a dark color. And so that combined with the dark brick just made that porch look really dark. So when we decided to paint all the brick the alabaster color, we also painted the columns and the soffits of the property in alabaster, and it brightened everything right up. The next part was these tall shrubs that were in front of the porch. There's some subconscious things that happen with a property, and one of them is when you walk up to a house, and we actually did this at our house, we had the same thing that was occurring. When there's a wall of shrubs that are sort of overgrown, it can make your inside of the house dark and you don't even realize it, but it sort of puts up this wall when people walk up to your front door that says, "You're not welcome here." So we pulled those shrubs out, and then we assessed what we wanted to do with landscaping. We decided to pull out all the old shrubs around the house because we looked at it and it wasn't that expensive to put down some Home Depot edging around the property. We used a nice brown mulch. I love that because it makes it look really natural. And we purchased small plants and planted them around the property. It cleaned everything up. It made it look really welcome. And when you have new landscaping, do you know that your house actually looks like a new house? So that might be something for you to consider for your property as well. Then there was the orange brick that looked, well, old, and it was from the 1960s, so it was very dated. So there is houses like these everywhere, and I wanted to make sure that this had character and it stood out and yet felt very warm and inviting. So what I did and what I do for any design idea that I'm thinking through is I like to look at magazines. So I have a stack of those that I go through, and I take a look at anything that catches my eye that I like. And I mark them or fold the page over, and I start to build my design plan. And in this case, it was for the outside. I also drive by houses, and if I see something I like, I take a picture of it. So I started to pull together some colors to create a color scheme. And you can see here, I use this a lot. It's kind of wore out, but these are all bent up. I'll pull out the different color scheme and put them together so that I can see the colors I'm considering next to each other. And I started with that seal skin that we talked about that we use for the trim, and I even use that for the front door. Then the alabaster white next to that, and together those two, if I only went with those two colors, would have been too harsh in my opinion. So I searched out and found another color called elephant ear, and that's what I chose for the shutters, so that it wasn't harsh to look at, but it still had that farmhouse look. And then of course I told Dave and Levi I must have cedar flower boxes, which they were so gracious to make for me. And so I created the design color scheme, and I worked the process from there throughout the entire exterior of the home. Many times concrete gets old and it gets stained and it just doesn't look nice. That was definitely the case with this property. Matter of fact, when you walked up onto the porch and you looked down, you could see that the house was not well cared for. And I didn't want to leave anything that gave people a clue that it had a past that maybe wasn't as nice as what its future was. So what we did is we researched this, and you can do this in your house to freshen up your front steps or your patio. We did it in the backyard as well. Is we found a concrete stain at Home Depot that actually kind of went on like a paint. So you have to be careful with what type of color you choose. If we went with something that was maybe too bright or look too new, it would stand out and start to overtake the other design elements of the exterior of the home. So I looked for a color that was in the grays but had a little bit of brown in it as well, so it didn't jump out and scream, "They painted the front porch and the patio." It actually ended up looking like it's been there all along, and that's what we were going for. The front of the house had a wobbly metal handrail, and I didn't know what I was going to do about that because I thought, do I need to have a handrail? That definitely had to go. But what we ended up doing is we were able to cut the bolts off, and so that we could remove that, and you couldn't even tell that there used to be a handrail there. Also, the steps were made of brick. And there was a part of me that wanted to keep that character in the front of the home, and so that's what I did. I kept the brick steps in place, and they actually went really well with the cedar flower boxes and the eventual flower pot that I put next to it. It all tied together, but remember, it started with a plan. Do you have worn-looking garage doors? Do they get dirty? That's one of those things we don't really notice because we use them every day. But one of the ways that a house can end up looking really tired is if those garage doors are dirty, dingy, or look like they need repair. We could have probably looked at these garage doors and decided to replace them, but instead we painted them the sealskin, and they look almost brand new. So if that's something that you might want to try to update or rejuvenate your house, it's very inexpensive and it can make a world of difference. So the air conditioner in the back, we all have air conditioners, and especially in Texas, but the placement of this air conditioner was really unsightly. It just kind of stood out there right next to the patio. It was loud and it did not add to the look of the patio. And so Levi actually got this idea, and you can do this as well. We bought 4 posts that he pounded in, and we bought some cedar wood, and he just made like a fence around it. And you know what? It looked beautiful, and it was a nice design element that tied into the rest of the property. This house is in a small town, and oftentimes, even by lakes, I remember growing up in Minnesota, you'd have a mansion here, and then you'd have a house that had been there for 100 years and wasn't taken care of. They're right next to each other. That was one of the problems that we had with this house, is behind it was an unsightly, messy yard. So how did we solve that? We put a fence up. Now when you come in the driveway, you've got this beautiful fence, and you don't even notice that mess in the other yard. And finally, we had a shed that we thought was a problem, but we turned it into an asset. That extra storage is really nice. And you might have an old shed on your property that doesn't match with your home, and it sort of stands out and looks like it doesn't belong. That was the case with this shed. So what did we do? We painted it the same colors as the rest of the house, and now it added character instead of detracting from the property. So again, studies show that the best place for you to invest in your home to get the value back out is on the exterior of the property. And you can do a lot of the things that we paid others to do for a fraction of the price. But I'll tell you, curb appeal and that first impression of your home makes a significant difference in how people perceive the hospitality coming to your property and your home. Our homes are really important to the Lord. You know, when you think about it, ministry happens in our homes. It's where we teach our children and they experience God in our families. It's where we gather for holidays. It's just a really precious place, and it's a place of refreshing and safety. And as I was thinking about this episode, a scripture came to mind, and it's 1 Samuel 16:7. And this is from the ESV, and it says this: "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I've rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." And as you're choosing a place to live, and maybe you even have a room in your house that's just never felt right, and you feel like, what am I going to do with this room? This is a scripture that helps us to remember to ask the Lord what He sees in this room or what He sees in this home. Trust the Lord with your selection. You may hear Him say, that's the one, or let's do this with this room. Let's make it into maybe a living room or a special place. And when we see that on the inside, that's where the creativity and the beauty can come out. So it becomes a material that you work with to create that space that God has envisioned. That's exactly what we did with the property when we chose it. We knew inside that this was the one. And with God and with the creative team that we brought around it, it became what you see today, the Coastal Cottage. The cost of redoing the entire exterior of the Coastal Cottage. One thing I wanted to share with you is in almost every article, when you study and find out what's the best return on investment that I can have on my home, almost every time the best investment that you can put into your house is on the exterior and on the curb appeal. So I know there's a lot of things that we want to fix and maybe change in our properties, and we're trying to make a decision what we should do first in our homes. But when we talk about the importance of the hospitality of walking into a property from the outside, I can tell you that plus knowing that it's going to give you a nice return and increase in value might help you to make a decision to go ahead and do something about the exterior of your home. And I hope that this project has inspired you on how to go about that. So let's talk about the breakdown of costs. The exterior paint of the home cost $5,000. Now that included who we hired to actually paint the outside of the home. You have to use a special kind of paint, a concrete paint, because if you paint brick with something that's not meant for brick, it can flake off and it will cause you issues down the road. So I would just encourage you, what we did, we went to Sherwin-Williams, we told them about the project, they recommended the paint, and if you do this yourself, you can do it for much less than the $5,000 that we paid. I got the shutters from Wayfair. I tried to order a color that I was hoping would work, but it didn't work. And I realized that I'm kind of picky about those colors, but still it was such a bargain. All of the shutters cost me $875 for the entire house, and that includes painting them. I had Miguel and Joe come over and paint those shutters elephant ear, and I'll tell you what, it was a game changer on the look of the house. So if you're trying to figure out what to do to kind of have an impact without spending a lot of money, I think you should consider either painting your shutters or adding shutters. It really makes a difference. The front door that we replaced, that I found at the surplus store, was only $498. It completely changed the look and feel of the front of the house. The concrete stain was just $85, and that really spruced things up. And that could be something if you've been in your house for a little while, or maybe you just purchased a house and the previous homeowners didn't take care of your concrete. This can change the look of the house, and it also feels really good when you walk on it with your bare feet. It feels clean and it makes it easy to spray off. The cedar flower boxes, had I purchased those, would have been well over $1,000, especially the size of the flower boxes that I wanted. But because Dave and Levi, they went to Home Depot, they picked out the things that I wanted those to look like with the cedar planks and the wood. They made those for just $375. To cover the air conditioner was just $275. Levi did that himself. You can do that yourself at home as well. The backyard fence was an investment. That wasn't something that we wanted to take on ourselves. It was $4,000, but if we hadn't taken care of that, that would have been something we would have had to look at every day because it was right along the driveway. So when you would come home, you were always looking at that neighbor that did not take care of their yard. Maybe you have a neighbor like that too, and then you can decide, hey, let's put a fence up. The landscaping was really inexpensive for the value that I feel like we received. It was just $1,650. If you've got some grown kids at home, or maybe some grandkids that are looking for a project, or you think, maybe it would be good to give them a project, this would be great for them. The edging from Home Depot, I used the deeper one, not the smallest one, really went in easy, and it just looks completely refreshed on the outside compared to when we had those shrubs and some of that scraggly landscaping. The new roof, because we split the cost with the seller, was just $4,750. But again, if you're a homeowner and you think you might have some hail damage, call your insurance company or have a roof inspector come out and take a look at it. We did add a light in the front that looks like a lamp post, and so I really wanted to bring that freshness in, but the lamp plus the outlet cost just $375. And that would be something too. Maybe you've had the same outdoor lanterns on your property for more than 20 years. We just get used to it, and really we don't even see it anymore when we walk up to the house. But maybe you could consider just that one thing, refreshing those lights, which will give your house a nice new look on the outside. The planter that was in the cedar that I put next to the steps, just $89 at Home Goods. And then with the heat in Texas, there was no way that I could plant real plants in those flower boxes. So I got the 50% off day at Hobby Lobby, and all of those silk plants cost just $329. And finally, remember when I was sharing with you about the gutter clips? $32. So compare that to getting a whole new gutter system. So the exterior renovation total was $17,943. I hope this program has inspired you to spruce up the outside of your home or take on that project, knowing that on the other side of that, you're going to see something absolutely beautiful that is going to give people that first impression of your home. You know, God wants to be in every part of our lives. And when we look at renovations or purchasing a property, we hear His voice. And I want you to know that His desire is that you do own property, that you do profit, and that your home is one that's full of peace and presence. Thank you so much for joining me today on Sweet Tea Hospitality. I'm Karen Conrad.